Lawrence, Sharday Crawford, and Sarah Austin over here. How we doing, ladies?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. So I know, if you've been following our social media channels, we have been all about the Murdaugh trial and stories from the beginning. We've been doing Carolina Justice Reports well over a year ago, and then we've been doing podcast live streams of the trial. So we are all up in that with you. I know we'll talk a little bit about the end of the trial because I know we talked about it on our podcast, but we haven't done it on the show yet. But are there any updates that have been happening within the past, couple weeks?
Since the verdict
Since the verdict, yeah.
Well, I'm sure everybody knows, but he was found guilty on all counts and was sentenced to 2 life sentences by Judge Newman the day after. And we do know that the defense has filed a notice of appeal.
And what does that mean, if someone doesn't know what that means?
So in South Carolina, you have 10 days from time of conviction to file a notice that you will appeal.
Okay.
And it says, hey, we're going to appeal.
And what is an appeal? What does that mean?
It says that there's something in the record that is reversible error, and we want someone to take a look at it and see if
they can do like a retrial. Would that be a retrial if that was granted?
Yep.
I don't know.
If it was granted later, but yeah.
Is that going to be a hard fight to fight for an appeal?
We think so, 100%.
Yeah.
The issues in that case is, and we were all like, all the lawyers watching it were, no one objected. And in order to appeal something, you have to preserve it for the record. So you have to object to it. The judge has to rule against it. Or not, and then that would be the appealable issue. There wasn't a lot of objections in that trial. Mm-hmm. It was insane. Like as a defense attorney, I was like,
I think we talked about this in a prior podcast.
Yeah, that there wasn't many.
They weren't objecting, and so I think there were a lot of appealable issues, but I don't know that they were preserved. So I think, I'm not sure which ones they can bring up to talk about. I wasn't keeping track, but it'll be definitely interesting to read it. The notice of appeal is just notice that you intend to file an appeal. The appeal will be written, it'll be detailed, it'll come out, and
so we don't know what the appeal is going to say.
It'll talk about each issue that they think is appealable and reversible, and so then we'll get to know sort of.
And what's kind of the timeline for that? When do we expect to get the actual appeal?
I mean, it's going to take months just to get the transcript. So you have to have a complete record.
So you have to go through the
they'll
whole
have
thing.
to have all that so they can comb through it and stuff. I mean, I don't foresee it happening for months.
Yeah.
And months.
And for the court to make a decision, that's years.
Oh,
appeals take years. So it's not going to.
So Alec is in there for a while before anything happens anyway.
I mean, I don't know. He always gets preferred treatment, so maybe they'll hear his earlier.
Or not hear theirs earlier.
Yeah, it'll probably be earlier than everybody else, but yeah, he's going to be in there for a while.
Huh. Well, that's interesting. I wasn't sure of the appeal process myself. So let's go back to the actual trial. We followed this heavily. We were live streaming it all day long, every day for over a month. Yes. So, it seems like now there's kind of like highlights from the trial that people are kind of talking about the most. I know the judge being one of those and kind of what he said to Alec at the end there. But what were things that stuck out to each of you with the trial?
What were your favorite parts?
I mean, my favorite part was sentencing.
Okay.
We talked about that on the podcast previously, but I liked hearing Judge Newman's perspective of here's this individual who has been sitting in an unbiased manner, not sharing his opinion with the court, and how here's the person who sat in, and he talked about how he sat in when all of the search warrants needed to be signed. The officers had to come to him. He sat in on the grand jury decisioning making, and then throughout the entire trial and all the pretrial motions. And as he then went through his feelings of that to say, here you are, this lawyer who's come in and practiced in front of me. I've seen you outside at parties, and, you were a gregarious individual. But here you are, this upstanding person in the legal community with a long-lasting history. And he even mentioned how he had to take his grandfather's picture down from the courthouse so that no one would be biased by that. But he's saying, knowing all of that, you still presented to the court an alibi defense. and had the state go through and prove you wrong on your alibi defense when you were saying that you weren't guilty and weren't even there. And it's not until they proved you wrong that you finally, accepted and then told the court, okay, you were there, but then you didn't commit the murders. And so, to hear Judge Newman then finally be able to share his opinion and very clearly tell him, I don't know how you're going to be able to sleep at night, and that, your wife and your son are going to come and visit you. And this is something that you've got to deal with in your soul. I really liked that because, of anybody, he's got this very full understanding of this case, and to then be able to share that as he pronounces sentence, and so that you can understand why his sentence was consecutive, right? I stood up in court one day and I asked the judge to give my client consecutive instead of concurrent, and I was like, "Ooh, my bad."
JK, just kidding.
Strike it from the record. So that was what I really liked.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. I think almost I am hearing about what Judge Newman said to him almost as much as I am the trial, just because there were some really powerful statements that he made to Alec that I think touched a lot of people. Yeah. And we also didn't get to really hear from Judge Newman. The whole time he's kind of been like the referee and, not able to voice his own opinion. And I think that was a real eye-opening experience that we were able to see that that's unusual, right? That the judge would kind of give all that at the end, or is it?
I guess it all depends on which judge it is. I've had judges where I've seen them, render life sentences and, go ahead and tell the court, it is my intention that the court knows and understands that I fully intended for you to spend every day of the remainder of your life in prison, and that should anything ever happen where we start releasing people from prison, that you are not one of them. It is my intention that they understand that, and this is why I'm giving you consecutive life sentences. And so, no, there are definitely judges who will lay it on and really tell you what was so impactful to them about that trial. But then there are others who just render the verdict and render the sentence and just move on.
I've seen it the opposite way too, though, where the judge is never going to come out and disagree with the jury's finding, but I've seen them be more lenient and explain the reasons for the leniency too. When
I found these mitigation
the jury,
circumstances,
and the judge thought it was going to go a different way, that it was going to be a not guilty, and it ended up being a guilty. So judges I always like when a judge speaks, regardless of how it comes out, because the judges sometimes, like in Judge Newman's case, on the case from the beginning, and they get to see all the evidence that sometimes the jury doesn't see.
We don't see.
And they're at all those hearings about what comes in, what doesn't, and so Judge Newman really has the best understanding of this case
I feel like
than anybody.
He's gained. I haven't heard a single negative thing about Judge Newman, which is shocking with all the, personalities and debates that have been going on with this trial and media coverage. It's like he has really gained everybody's respect through the trial with how he's handled it.
And I think it should probably just speak volumes about why he was appointed to that.
Yeah.
Because this wasn't some random selection to place him on there. He was chosen by the Supreme Court, the South Carolina Supreme Court, to sit on this case.
Right.
And I think that what everybody has witnessed, the whole nation has witnessed why. When life